have you say? You can listen and then call on in. State your opinion and speak and then. You don't agree with the people they got, then take your shot and speak to them. Discuss the issues we must. Officials corrupt, the phones erupt. Social, political, spiritual, physical, literal, lyrical, verbally, visual world participants. That's the difference. Piques my interest. That's the impetus. Couldn't call in, so I posted it, hoping that someone would notice it. Open and cope with it. My dominion, my opinion. Speak to the world that I'm living in. Very few shows that go this way. You're listening in to World Have You Say.
Hi, I'm Mary Socek, and welcome to the BBC's World Have You Say, live from the studios of WGCU.
From all of us who listen in Southwest Florida, it's great to be hosting the show again. We're looking forward to talking with you.
Today we want to discuss the Occupy Wall Street protests and whether we want this to be the start of a mass movement for change.
My name is Lydia Black, and I am an executive director at our cultural organization here in Fort Myers. I agree wholeheartedly with the community of change at Wall Street right now. I just wish that they could communicate their message and identify what their areas to be able to communicate are.
My name is Myra, and I'm a professor, and I agree fully with what they do, and I am supporting them because I think that they speak for many of us working people, teachers and others who have been demonized, and any time that we're asked to sacrifice, then it doesn't matter anymore for the rich to sacrifice. It's only for the poor.
Hi, my name is Patty. I live in Bonita Springs. I work at a local bank. I totally support the movement. I believe that we're all tired of the gridlock in Congress and the idea that corporations are job makers when all they do is lay off people.
If you'd like to watch this show, you can watch it at WGCU.org.
And as usual, you can call, text, tweet, Facebook, or email the show. We'll give you the details as we go along.
We'll tell you how we feel about these protests, but we also want to hear how those of you outside America view them.
We're set. We hope you are. Let's get the conversation underway.
Email us at worldhaveyoursay@bbc.com. The blog address is worldhaveyoursay.com.
The American Spectator Spectacle blog says facile comparisons to the Arab Spring insults the real revolutionaries who braved batons, bullets, and brutal despots.
Anna Marie Slaughter of the New York Times suggests people abroad with a long history of disenfranchisement and trampling of their dignity may understand the fissures in our society better than we do ourselves.
Mbaka Masir, a blogger in Egypt, asks, "Are you ready for a Tahrir moment?" Thousands have answered the call, hoping America's moment has come. I'm Nicole. Are we ready for this moment?
Hi, I'm James, a student in Florida, and I agree wholeheartedly with this movement because even though the banks have almost failed, they're still raking in tons of money, and the U.S. citizens are getting the short end of that stick.
Hi, my name is Lucy, and I'd like to see the initiative named Conscientious Capitalism.
Yes, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm trying to get fabric to start my business I can't get, and I'd like the banks to work with me as a citizen here, and I feel unfortunate.
Well, even before the program started, we found that a lot of people in this room are concerned. Conscientious capitalism seems to be a good descriptive term to me.
I'm confused, though. You, Geraldine, say you feel unfortunate. You live in the wealthiest country in the world. There'll be people listening all around the world thinking, you're the last person who's unfortunate.
Well, I was involved in the 90s. I was an international designer in China, and I was involved with seeing them develop, and I was part of it as a designer. And now I have a business I want to start here, and I can't find fabric in the U.S. It has to come from India or China.
If you want to comment on what you're hearing, please post at facebook.com/worldhaveyoursay.
Or tweet using the WISE hashtag.
I'm Bob. I'm an entrepreneur. And my concern is that the focus isn't there for this protest yet. And walking the halls of Congress, what I see is that money talks and small businesses have absolutely no say. So I'm fortunate enough to be in the top 2%, and I'm still frustrated and agree with these guys. The problem is that we need to be able to do what Prohibition people did and what the women's right votes in the 20s did. We need to be able to go out and say, these politicians need to sign a pledge. And we need to be able to say there's no PACs and super PACs, and that they will only take money from...
Bob, I've got a challenge for you. In about 30 seconds, explain what a PAC and a super PAC is to people listening who don't know.
Sure. These are fundraising groups that collect money from very large donors, and they siphon it through what's called a 501c4, where they're absolutely anonymous to the world.
And if you're listening, and you're American in particular, what do you make of this enthusiasm for the Occupy Wall Street protest? Do you think it's sensible? Do you think it's rational? Or do you think, on the whole, America needs capitalism that is not burdened with over-regulation? Do call us up, country code 44-2070-83-72-72. We're in this huge TV studio. It feels like a second home. We've come here so many times to Southwest Florida. We've got TV lights blaring down on us, so it's quite hot. We're actually filming this, and if you want to watch the program as it's being broadcast, go to WGCU.org, and you'll be able to watch it as well as listen. And up on a huge screen, which is usually used as a backdrop to a news bulletin, we're projecting guests who are joining us on Skype and also some of the photos which we're uploading onto Flickr.
Hi, I'm Patty. I think that the fact that it's disorganized and doesn't have a main focus group is actually one of its wonderful points, because it's people really speaking out. It's not being organized by money anywhere. They have so many issues that they're concerned with.
Ross, I'm Marcus. I own a small business, and I believe the protesters are very angry at how the greedy bankers and Wall Street executives and corporations have caused this economic downfall. And how are they held accountable? They're making more money than ever. In our country, the highest paid 1% makes more money than the lowest paid 60%. That's more than 180 million workers. Our political system...
But Marcus, hold on, before you carry on reading that point, because reading's never a great idea when you're on World Have Your Say. I spent the whole hour in Naples listening to you guys celebrate Steve Jobs, a man who helped create one of the great American corporations, a company which has billions and billions of dollars in the bank, a company which ruthlessly attacked its rivals and ate everything before it. And you were all telling me, this is great, this is the American we should be proud of, that we should aspire to being.
He also spent money for better quality, and he didn't really take it as the pure capitalist of money, money, and forget your market, like what we're doing now, destroying the middle class. That's the problem. The protesters need direction. Direction, the answer that our political system provides, there isn't any. Nationalize those big industries. Nationalize healthcare. Nationalize energy.
Thank you very much, Marcus.
It comes back to the point of what is the issue? What is the root cause, and how are the protesters able to communicate with the public? Because they're not just talking about Wall Street and capitalism. They're talking about changing lifestyles, being active, engaged community members, being better consumers, more conscientious consumers, and that is the issue, I think, at the heart, that it's not just capitalism, it's becoming better citizens, engaged citizens, and a better community.
Hi, I'm Valerie Edwards, and you're listening to World Have Your Say in Southwest Florida.
We're discussing the Occupy Wall Street protest. Those of us in America are telling you if we want them to succeed, and those of you outside the states are giving us perception of what's underway.
Well, let's go outside of the States for the first time and bring in a guest from Tunis in Tunisia. Kamal Ben Younis is a reporter for the Tunisian newspaper Azabar. He's one of its editors-in-chief as well. Kamal, thank you very much for joining us. We can see you up on the big screen here in Florida. Tell us what your perspective is on these protests in America.
As a Tunisian activist in human rights and a think tank man and journalist following the Tunisian Revolution and Arab Spring and what is happening now in some social and political movement all over Europe and all over the world, including in America, I think that thanks to the social media, Facebook, YouTube, and media, we have the feeling that we have the same concerns, social concerns, political concerns, reform concerns to end with corruption, asking social justice and reforms.
Younis, thank you for speaking to us. I wonder if there's anyone here in Florida who thinks it is correct to make any sort of comparison between what a few thousand protesters have done in America and what happened in Tunisia, the country which started the Arab Spring, which kicked out Ben Ali and said, we want change. Who would like to speak to Younis?
Well, I believe in Tunisia they were faced by bullets. We're faced by New York policemen arresting people. Would be a big change. But it is still a grassroots movement of people that are concerned about their daily existence, their families, and what they want to do with their lives.
Okay, I'd like to just call it the way it is, and our leaders in our country are a bunch of spoiled brats, and it's time for us to recognize that freedom fighters around the world, and it's ridiculous to make these comparisons, and that will hopefully humble us to recognize that the power of the change is for us to put our hands out and not in our own pockets.
But let's bring in Kamal Ben Yunus, because Kamal, some people online are saying what's starting in America has the feel of what started in Tunisia. Do you think that comparison works?
No, I think we can't compare, and we don't have to compare, but because the deep problem of the frustration of the people here in Tunisia or in all over the world is the failure of the economic system, and the economic crisis impact and the social economic problems started in US and in America. The impact of the economic crisis and social problem in America and Europe had their impact in Tunisia and all over the world. In Tunisia, we have only 3% of people under the level of the poverty. The problem was not only political, but to fight against the corruption, the jobless, and you have the same problem, maybe more in America.
Well, let's talk about what you call the broken system. I wonder if you're listening in America, whether you're in Southwest Florida, tuned to WGCU, or elsewhere, tuned to us on Sirius or public radio. Do you really think this system is broken, the system which has made you richer than anyone else in the world? Call us up. I'd be curious to hear from you. Country code 44-2070, 83-72-72. And to Kamal Ben Yunus, it's very good to be able to see you. I don't often get to say that when I'm talking to people on the radio. Thank you very much for joining us live from Tunisia.
Achono from Nigeria on Facebook. I think the issue here ought not to be likened to revolutionary quest, but a situation which is ignited by political and racial discrepancies. If the government of America had earlier agreed on their debt issues, perhaps most of this chaos would never happen.
Hi, I'm Lewis. I think the system is broken. We've got a system where we look at banks are loaning money to people who couldn't afford their houses. Industries laid these people off. Their houses are going for foreclosure now. That affects me. I'm paying the cost because my house has lost the value. We have costs that are external to the cost of the business that are ignored, pollutants and other things that are absorbed by society while the people pull the money away. Capitalism is paying the full cost of operating, not just the local cost.
Yeah, I'm Bruce. The system is broken, but what's also broken is government. Government's main function is to protect the people. Instead, the shepherds are working with the wolves and devouring us together.
Bruce, I agree. I think government has backed away from that role that they have of leveling those playing fields to make sure people pay the total cost if you're producing a product to pay the cost of producing the whole product.
There is no level playing field. The government is bought and owned by the people who have a commercial interest in keeping them in power and keeping us on the short end. And I want to tell you that a man who lives in Tunis in a two-bedroom home is a lot richer than a person in the United States with a 7-bedroom home that's been evicted from his house.
I agree. The protesters, I think, need to move on two fronts, both Wall Street and the politicians. Wall Street and the large corporations can safely ignore them because they can secretly give money to the politicians, and the politicians will introduce the laws that
But can I ask you all a question?
We've
We've got Ali in Yemen. He's going to join us on the phone in a moment. But you're saying it's a failure of the political system. Bruce, you said it. Some of you were nodding. Does that include President Obama? Has he let you down? Because the first time I stood in this studio was a couple of days after he became your president. You were all telling me how great he was.
I think it involves all the politicians. And
including the president.
Including the president.
But it's a system, and if you control the money, you control the people.
Right.
And so I think where we're not quite like Tunisia, there are elements in that revolution that we see here in this protest.
Hey, Victoria, talk to me about your president.
I love my president. I'm a legacy volunteer for him. I still believe in that president, not just because of jobs, but because of change he's trying to start within all of us to be better community people, to be better neighbors with other countries and with ourselves.
What's happened in our country? What's happened in our country is that our political system has failed us. The political system that we've grown up with, a two-party system, was debate, and when you're done debating, compromise and get the people's business done. And that's what's not being done now.
I believe that the president is one person. Right. And it's impossible for one person to control all of Congress. And And the other part of it is I'm from Detroit originally. And back when I was a kid and the UAW was having disagreements, they would sit in a room and they would compromise. They would find a way to put a contract together. And right now, our Congress is not able to do that.
But that's what President Obama and John McCain said they were going to do when they were battling it out. They both said they would compromise for the benefit of the people. So do you feel let down by the man who won?
I feel let down by everyone in Congress. I don't think that they have done what they need to do for America.
Bia from Cameroon posted on Facebook, I do actually think this is the American spring because, in my opinion, the Western press, especially the American press, are quick to report on even the slightest protest in the Middle East, but not when it comes to protests in their own country.
Yes. Hi to all of you listening around the world. I'm Alexandrea, and you're listening to the BBC's World Have Your Say, live from Southwest Florida.
You can also watch a live stream of the show at WGCU.org.
Well, just a moment ago, up on the big screen here in WGCU, we saw a guest from Tunis. Now, let's stay in North Africa and speak to Khalid Douad, an assistant editor-in-chief of Al Cairo Weekly English newspaper. He's live with us from Alexandria. Khalid, welcome to Florida. Welcome to World Have Your Say. We spent many, many weeks talking about the revolution which took place in your country. The people standing around me in Florida listened intently. Can you tell me your view of what you see happening in America? That doesn't sound like him answering, does it? We'll get him back on the line. In the meantime, let's bring in Jean here in Florida.
Yes, I'm Jeannie from Naples, and in 1968 through 1970, I worked for the Associated Press in Boston. And during that time, as you all remember, if you're as old as I am, you remember all the discourse in the United States and all. And I was witness to all the uprisings in Boston for segregation, for against the war, and the people did have a voice, and they did come out. But I also saw censorship in the press. I saw that there were some photographs that weren't shown. I was witness to this, and I think we're seeing that now.
Russia's Novosti blog says, why didn't these people take to the streets in 2008 when the global economic crisis was at its worst?
Well, there's the question. I stood where I'm standing here at the beginning of 2009. I don't remember anyone saying they would have supported these kind of protests. Now you're all saying that you do. Deborah's got a hand up.
Hi, I'm Deborah from Detroit originally. And I think in 2008, Americans were in total shock. It hadn't really hit us, and I think we've needed time to get our heads together and regroup, and I think now we are finally beginning to come together, and we're ready to take action.
I was just going to say that I think Obama walked into this. He needs time to put this together. The political party is such a finesse profession now. We need to work with community, accountants, healthcare professionals, as our politicians that are in touch with community to help us all be on an equal balance level.
Well, I think the reason that we're not seeing a lot of coverage on major media outlets is that major media outlets are owned by big money too, so we're not.
If I could just go back for a minute, I think that perhaps there was less upheaval in 2008 because I think Americans still believed in the political system. It was an election year, and we assumed that we could make changes through voting. Unfortunately, we have discovered that is not the case. I would also like to say that in terms of not getting information out, if you, like most of us, use your internet and you are involved with social media, you watch social media, that's where I get most of my information from, and that information is coming out.
So, Pat, it's already known that only about 50% of Americans who can vote. Do you think the experience of being an American at the moment is going to make people more radical, more likely to vote, or actually make them less likely to turn out?
I think that the young people and the not-so-young people who are out there demonstrating in the streets are giving us a true sense of democracy and telling us we need to take back that which we have given away. And I think you're going to see a lot more people involved in voting. People who had been discouraged are now being encouraged and will be out there voting.
Can I ask you all about an observation I've made, but I may be going in the wrong direction. When I first started coming here with World Have You Say, 2005, 2006, 2007, Democrats would get stuck into the Republicans would get stuck into the Democrats. Now when I find I come to the States, people seem to be getting more stuck into the idea of Washington than they are to one side or the other of the political spectrum. Am I seeing that right, or am I getting a distorted view?
I think that that's absolutely correct. People are getting more drawn by party lines, and it seems as though whoever is the quote-unquote ruling party, the Democrats or the Republicans at the time, it seems as though the other side doesn't work for the people. They simply work to try and block and stonewall.
There's absolutely no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans when it comes to fundraising. When Obama says he's going to raise $1 billion, okay, and the Republicans come and say they're going to match it, that doesn't come in $5 chunks. These guys need 6, 7-figure checks, and that's why we've got to limit the amount anybody can give to $2,000 and make it totally transparent.
Mary from Germany posts on Facebook, I really hope more European countries will follow suit. We all have to do something against those criminal bankers.
Joseph in Nigeria posts on Facebook, the USA is not going through any Arab Spring. The country is already advanced in all areas of life. A lot of countries around the world will be watching very closely how America will react to those protests.
If you want to comment on what you're hearing, please post at facebook.com/worldhaveyoursay.
Or tweet using the WISE hashtag.
To go back to your statement about whether or not this is going to really bring a lot of people out, regardless of their age or their ability to vote, a word has been thrown around a lot because of social media called slacktivism, where you get your word out by a retweet or a Facebook post and you don't actually do anything. However, I think in this instance with the Occupy Wall Street, it actually is bringing people in and getting them out and involved, and hopefully that involvement will translate to the voting booths.
So I'm curious, there are about 150 of you here. If there was a protest in Fort Myers or Naples, would you turn out?
Yes.
Yeah, the real problem politically, I think, is not the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, although I think that one of them is the lesser of the two evils. The problem is that there is no viable counterbalance to corporate influence in politics. It used to be the unions. It isn't the unions anymore. The unions have lost all their power. There's nothing. There's the corporations. They pretty much own the government at this point.
Gentleman just next to you stuck his hand straight up.
You know, not true. I think one of the challenges that we don't yet understand is that globally the balance is China. And they're manufacturing the changing of their laws to make it the most productive environment in the world. Russia and other countries, they're changing their world so that they can compete against us. And that in itself is creating a checks and balance system that we didn't have before.
We're right in the middle of a conversation. Dana, hold that thought because we've got 30 seconds to go before the news. I promise Pat and Dana will come straight back to you. And there's a gentleman at the back. Is it Mike? Mike, I'll come to you straight after the news as well. And wherever you're listening in the world, if you want to take part, the numbers are the same just because we're in Florida, nothing changes. Country code 44 2070 83 72 72. Here comes the news, then we'll keep on talking.